Ladies and gentlemen, since 2005, the Public Policy Forum has partnered with TD Bank Group to recognize outstanding young women and men from their mid-teens to late 30s who influence the way we think and act in public policy and civic engagement. This year, the PPF is pleased to welcome to their alumni the first recipient of the Indigenous Leader Award, Alika Lafontaine. Alika is an anesthesiologist. He grew up in Regina and now practices in northern Alberta. His father's ancestry is Cree and Ojibwa. His mother is from the Pacific Islands. As a matter of fact, Alika is a Hawaiian name. They grew up in the city, but as youngsters, Alika and his 4 siblings played in a band called the Fifth Generation and performed in First Nations communities. They appeared on APTN with Susan Aglukak, singing Indigenous songs. For Alika's parents, education was everything. They pushed hard for their children to go to university. All did. 2 siblings are lawyers, one's a dentist. Now, Alika had few role models at university, especially during medical school at the University of Saskatchewan. Lorsqu'il est arrivé là pour la première fois, il s'est senti complètement dépassé, intimidé par le milieu aisé dont provenaient ses collègues, sans jamais croiser des visages qui ressemblaient aux siens. Il a pensé abandonner. Il s'est senti victime de discrimination. Certains de ses collègues de classe pensaient qu'il n'était pas à sa place, qu'il était là à cause d'un système de quotas ou d'un programme de discrimination positive. Pendant ses 4 années de médecine, il était le seul étudiant autochtone. Le doyen l'a pris sous son aile, l'a encouragé, et Alika a pris confiance en lui. Il est devenu un jeune homme encore plus déterminé. And I'll tell you just how determined and why I'm on my best behavior with him right now. In 2008, during his 5-year fellowship in anesthesiology, Alika participated in Canada's Next Great Prime Minister contest and won. Now, he won the contest in part by calling for an Indigenous House in the federal Parliament. He even locked horns with a former Prime Minister, Paul Martin, who was one of the judges on the show that year. Of course, they have since become good friends, and Mr. Martin has become a trusted advisor. Alika is the immediate past president of the Indigenous Physicians Association of Canada, and he has dedicated his career to furthering Aboriginal health. As a founding member of the Indigenous Health Alliance, he works to align national medical organizations and health decision makers behind Indigenous communities. The goal is to achieve practical implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action on health. As for political career, for now anyway, I know what that's like, Alika says he's happy to be able to advocate for better health care for Indigenous Canadians and that he has a lot more work to do. I know we're all glad that he does, and he takes it so seriously. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in warmly congratulating Alika Lafontaine.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Mr. Prime Minister. Not something you ever expect to say. I have many people I'm grateful to tonight, but I'd like to say thank you to my wife. When we first started getting involved and I told you I had extracurricular activities, I'm sure you didn't expect this. Thanks for your sacrifice and reminding me to keep my heart and mind in the right place. I'd like to share with you all 2 stories tonight. One is about myself and one is about a patient. Early in elementary school, I was labeled as developmentally delayed. I had difficulty pronouncing most words. My principal met with me and my parents after months of speech therapy and told us that I'd never graduate high school. My parents were devastated. After the meeting, I remember my mom holding me in the car and telling me over and over again I wasn't broken. Obviously, they didn't accept the expectations of my principal. Early in medical training, I met a young boy who had a ruptured spleen, the result of a car accident. Although a major surgery, it's not all that uncommon. And with my physician supervisor, we reassured the boy and his parents that everything would likely be okay. Deep into the surgery, we realized that the damage was much more extensive than originally thought. Eventually, we exhausted every surgical option. There wasn't anything else we could do. The image of the mother standing over his body, whispering her final goodbyes, is burned into my mind. As she left the operating room, my physician supervisor put his arm around me. He said, "I know you're thinking about how you failed this family, but what you're feeling isn't failure, it's regret. No one expected that child to die tonight." Of all the things that we believe when we create public policy, expectations are probably the most important. I want you to consider the following expectations. It will take decades for Indigenous health disparities to be eliminated. Suicides, out of control chronic disease, and lack of access to basic healthcare services are absent for too many First Nations, and while heartbreaking, it's too complex to fix quickly. We still need more research. These aren't facts. These are expectations. And as I've come to realize, expectations can be wrong in the most significant of ways. First Nations have begun to realize this, led by inspiring leaders like those from Anishinaabe Nation here with me today, and residential school survivors like Ted Cusans. We're going into our communities and changing expectations. Utilizing a process, we're articulating problems and solutions in a way that's never been as clear, and bringing granular detail to the inherent health rights that we as Canadians all share, and the unique rights that First Nations have as a founding nation of Canada. We have a choice, but it's not a choice of whether or not we'll change. That change is going to happen regardless. It's a choice of whether or not we work together or we work apart. And the consequences of that choice will shake the very foundations of the Canadian healthcare system. It's an honor to be the recipient of the inaugural award tonight. I love this country. I am proud of my Indigenous people. And I know together we can create an incredible future together. Thank you.